All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever really thought about common words like most or few? You might think they're just vague, but it turns out they're not. They actually follow this hidden, incredibly powerful logic that shapes how we all think and talk. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that logic. You see, for centuries, formal logic lived in a pretty simple world. It really only had two main tools in its belt: for all and there exists, which is basically just sum. But our everyday language? It's so much richer, isn't it? We use words like most, few, many, at least three without even thinking about it. So the big question was, how on earth do you bridge that massive gap?
And this gap wasn't just some small detail. It was a huge, nagging puzzle for linguists and logicians. They knew, deep down, that their tools just weren't sharp enough to really figure out how our language actually works.
And here's the problem with that limited toolkit. It just can't handle the nuance of how we reason. I mean, saying some students passed is true if just one passed, or if every single one of them passed. But most students passed, well, that means something completely different, and classical logic just had no way to get its hands around that.
But then, in the 20th century, something clicked. A total revolution in thinking came along that completely changed how we analyze the logic of language. It gave us all the tools we were missing. And this wasn't just about grammar. It was like opening a new window into the very architecture of human reason.
So at the very heart of this revolution is this idea called the generalized quantifier. Now, what's really cool about this is how simple it is at its core. It basically says that a word like most isn't about a single thing. It's about the relationship between two groups. So for most dogs bark, it's describing the relationship between the set of all dogs and the set of all things that bark. Simple as that.
And I love this analogy because it just nails it. Suddenly, we didn't just have a hammer and a screwdriver. We had a whole industrial-grade tool chest with a specialized tool for every single nuanced job our language can do.
Now, this didn't just happen overnight. The mathematical seeds were planted way back in the 1950s. But the real aha moment for linguistics came in 1981 when two researchers, Barwise and Cooper, showed how this abstract math could perfectly model real natural language. And today, it's an absolute cornerstone of the field.
So, you've got this giant tool chest. How does it stay organized? You might think it'd be chaotic, but it's not at all. It turns out that all human languages, everywhere, seem to follow the same strict design principles for how these quantifiers work. They follow these deep, universal rules.
So, let's try a little thought experiment. When you say something like, most students are smart, who are you actually talking about? To check if that sentence is true, whose brain do you need to peek into?
The answer is you only care about the students, right? You don't need to check on smart professors or smart pets or smart furniture. Your brain just automatically, instantly restricts the whole world of that statement down to just the students. This automatic restriction thing has a formal name. It's called conservativity. And here's the kicker. It's considered a major semantic universal. What that means is, in any language, the very first group you mention, the students in our example, it sets the entire stage. Everything else just becomes background noise.
And conservativity isn't the only rule of the game. There are others, like one that basically says the logic only cares about the numbers involved, not who or what you're talking about. So whether it's most apples or most galaxies, the logic of most works the exact same way. This is what keeps the rules consistent and universal.
Okay, so we've got this new tool chest, and it's governed by these strict universal rules. Now let's see what we can actually build with it, because this framework, it gives us some incredible explanatory power. This generalized quantifier theory, or GQ theory for short, suddenly gives us a single, unified way to understand a whole range of stuff. It obviously handles words like most and few, but it also helps us model complex things like each other, how plural nouns work, and even adverbs of time like always and never. It's all connected.
So check this out. Here's a sentence that would make classical logic just throw up its hands and quit. Most men and most women admire each other. Think about that. It's a really complex web of interactions, right? The most men and most women aren't in a simple straight line. They kind of branch out and connect through that admire each other part.
But with GQ theory, no problem. It gives us the exact tool we need for the job. In this case, it's something called branching quantifiers, and this lets us formally map out that complicated two-way relationship and capture the sentence's precise meaning. It's a level of detail that was just impossible before.
So we have this really powerful formal theory.
But how does it connect back to us? Back to the messy, complicated reality of the human mind.
And this is where things get really interesting and kind of tricky. The theory is fantastic for something precise, like at least 3. But what about many? If I say many people showed up, how many is that exactly? Is it 5, 50, 500? The answer is, well, it depends.
Yeah, these vague words are super context-dependent. Many ants in your kitchen is a very different number than many elephants in your kitchen, right? This is a huge active area of research, and it's pushing scientists to combine GQ theory with other tools, like fuzzy logic, to try and model that inherent imprecision in our language.
And this leads to a fascinating new frontier: cognitive load. Researchers are now actually studying how much brain power, how much of our working memory it takes to process different quantifiers. And what they're finding is a direct link between the logical complexity of a word like most and the real, measurable mental effort it takes us to understand it.
Which brings us to the final big thought. We started with these simple little words, most and few, and we ended up talking about universal rules of language and the cognitive load on our brains. So, if our everyday, seemingly messy language is built on such a deep, elegant, logical foundation, what does that tell us about the fundamental structure of human thought itself?